Hi, Dan. Thanks a lot for making yourself available. Thank out of your busy schedule, and I really appreciate you taking time to share your FE exam preparation journey, your successful FE exam preparation journey. So, my first question for you is, what was your motivation? What motivated you to basically undertake this challenging exam?
Well, most of my early career, I was in the contracting world and have some time also in the federal government. So it was, mentioned before, I graduated in '03. So my EE degree is, getting some age to it, but
About 18 years ago, roughly
18
17,
years
18.
ago,
Yeah.
that's right. So, one of the things that I think never allowed me to move forward with it in the past was that I never worked under another PE. Didn't have that time under a PE, due to the career path that I took.
Yeah, because if you're in
Um,
construction, sorry to interject, by the time you're actually working on actual installation and construction, everything has been designed, right? It's been
that's right.
stamped, it's been sealed. You're basically working with the drawings and making sure that it's built as designed.
That's right. Up until now, my entire career has been everything but design, from
Right. Yes.
from sales, product sales, to application, to quality control, to field work. Everything has been everything other than design. Um, after time of being in the government, and also I'm a veteran, so I have military experience
Nice.
as well.
Appreciate it.
I don't know what piqued my curiosity as to investigate more a pathway for me to get my PE, knowing that I didn't have that time working under a PE.
Right.
But I was perusing the Ohio State licensure website, and I noticed that it had a tab for military, for government, and I clicked on that and noticed it had just kind of a different verbiage as to what qualified,
Okay.
and that sparked me to make a phone call,
Nice.
and I submitted my resume to the board, and lo and behold, there's the law allows for other pathways, or being able to submit your experience, having worked under other um,
Professionals.
graduated
Mhm.
graduated engineers, but also having that government experience. So
Nice.
from that point forward, that's when I kind of decided to pursue it and study for the fundamentals exam, and go this route.
So you were still not able to short circuit any of the exam requirements, right? Because you still took the FE exam,
Right.
which is a challenging undertaking. It's not as if you were given an exemption, right? In terms of, I guess, some of the documentation requirements, they would have accommodated you. But still, the most difficult part of this entire journey remains these two exams, the
Right.
FE exam that you've already cleared and the PE Power exam that you are right now preparing for. So if you could walk me through your FE exam preparation journey a little bit. I believe you passed it last year. So when did you seriously start preparing for the exam? How long it took? The resources you used, what you would recommend other students, and so on and so forth.
Sure. I started the study process in the fall of 2019, actually, and I had some time where I was able to put in a couple months of studying, and knowing that it had been 18 years since I did my undergrad. I knew I would probably need some additional help and some structure to what I was doing, rather than just trying to take it on my own. And I believe I found your website just through a simple Google search, and I read some reviews, and I looked at the content, and I believe I exchanged some emails with you, and felt comfortable enough um, to sign up for your program. and beginning my self-paced study. And I believe also you gave me access for a time to check everything out. So all those things were greatly helpful in just getting the ball rolling.
Nice.
Um, kind of what I did. I think the first time I went through all of your lessons, didn't really take an active approach. It's more or less me kind of listening to you and following along. And then I realized that going and then trying to take the practice exams, I realized that I didn't have any notes, so I wasn't able to go back and reference
Right.
easily things that I missed or didn't kind of come through. So I actually went through it a second time and took notes and everything and labeled all my notes in terms of which subjects pertain to what. And that seemed to be a very helpful key in attempting those practice exams. And from that point forward, it was a matter of routinely attacking, going through those practice exams and getting the repetition and building up my speed. But
Yeah.
it certainly took away a lot of frustration to have those notes to where I could quickly, find the information I needed so that I wouldn't get stuck and kind of just waste a lot of time.
Right. No, efficient studying is definitely a huge component of making everything easy, right? And regardless, it still remains a difficult exam. Okay, both of these exams are challenging, but if you can build up essentially that meticulous note-taking, habits around how you're keeping track of your progress, habits around how you're reinforcing what you're learning to practice problems at the end of every lecture, practice problems within the lecture, or making use of the study guide, the problem sets. So all of those small things will basically help you tackle this challenging exam and make it a little bit more easier. In terms of your exam preparation timeline, you mentioned that you started in fall of 2019. Um, so how long essentially was that exam preparation period, and how many hours were you averaging every week?
Well, like I said, I probably put in a couple months in the fall, and then I kind of put it aside for a bit. I think I just had some other things I had to take care of in my life, and then I picked it back up. I would say around February
Okay.
of 2020, and at the time I was working for myself, and then the pandemic hit.
Right.
So at that point, I actually had a lot of time to really focus
Right.
on my studies, and essentially, maybe not February, but definitely maybe not March, but definitely April and May. Essentially, it was my primary focus
Right.
was to put in the time, and I believe I took my exam in June, early June.
Okay.
So February, if you just counted February, March, April, May, you know, 4 or 5 months there, and if you add in a couple months prior, which
Yeah,
is really
roughly 6 months.
a
So
ramp
six
up
months of
time,
focus studying.
I would say 6 months of focus studying is fair.
Okay.
It was
Yeah,
kind
and
of
that's quite standard. I mean, it takes around that much amount of time. Um, and different people have different speeds in the sense that if you're fresh out of school, obviously you can get this done much faster. If you're working full time, it will slow you down. If you have other things happening in your life, it can slow you down. So there are many factors in play, but the most important thing is perseverance. You basically stick with it. You made sure that you saw it through and you passed the exam, essentially, right? So that is, you achieved your end goal and you didn't give up it, throughout that process. It's a long journey. I mean, it takes a lot of toll on you, right?
it is. It's also it was a strange experience in that when it was done, I found myself missing that daily challenge or that something to do. Um, you know, I think it just became a habit that I kind of missed. The daily tackling problems and
Okay.
doing those practice problems. That didn't last long, I'll tell you
Okay.
that. But I think I was just so much in the routine of it
Okay.
that you realize that's when you realize how much time you put into it. So like, okay, what do I do with myself now?
Well, that's the reason why you jumped into the PE exam, right? Because you
That's
want to
right.
tackle that next. You're one of the very few students who miss out FE exam preparation. Most of the students are like, "Oh, that part of my life, I never want to revisit it." Right. So, moving on to the next portion, how do you think this FE exam, FE licensing, has helped you? Well, it's not really FE licensing, but yeah, I believe you got registered as an EIT, did you?
Yes, for the state of Ohio, they call it engineering and training, or they
Yeah.
actually no, it's not. It's engineer intern is the
Yeah.
terminology.
Right.
So yes, I'm registered as an engineer intern for the state of Ohio.
And how did passing the FE exam help you in your career so far?
Well, with the pandemic kind of hitting at the same time and that affecting my own personal business, because I was doing residential installations, um, and it affected it quite drastically very quickly.
Right.
And I decided right away that maybe it'd be better off going ahead and getting a 9 to 5 uh, W-2
Right.
job. And I interviewed with several firms, a handful of design firms, a handful of contractors as estimator. Um, at that time, it was apparent that I just didn't have the design experience you know, um, that the design firms were looking for. And I think also they were a little bit nervous with what would be coming
Right.
with everything changing so quickly.
Right.
And so, you know, I think it was definitely appealing to the contractors that I interviewed with, that I was, on the path of getting my PE,
Right.
because having a PE on staff allows them to produce stamped drawings
Exactly. And it saves them
and
costs.
saves
It's
them
in-house
costs.
expertise. Yeah.
That's right, and it gives them legitimacy,
Right.
because a lot of estimators simply come up through the field. A lot of them don't even have any education beyond high school.
Right.
All very knowledgeable, and don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
But to be able to produce stamped drawings when you're dealing with a design build scenario,
Exactly.
working directly with the owner, and not having to go out and bring another entity into the fold is
Exactly.
huge. Is a huge advantage.
Yeah. And some clients actually prefer that. For some clients, it can be a deal breaker. So if a contractor can take on the design responsibility for at least just the scope that they're working on and actually do the installation and construction themselves, that is a huge plus for some of the clients. Yeah.
Right. And the company I was with, they, you know, we're always looking to expand their direct to owner design build um, projects, their percentage of projects, in their portfolio. But I think along with everything else, that was an advantage.
So it's going to complement your P-Power exam preparation as well, because as you will soon find out, you're enrolled in my P-Power course as well. I think you've made some progress through it, but because of job change and everything else, it will take you a little bit more time to get back into the rhythm. But the good thing is that just like the FE exam, the P-Power exam is all year round. It's closed book. You can schedule it whenever you like, essentially probably at the same testing center where you gave your FE exam, and it's going to complement your design experience because P Power will really take you down into the depths, right, of power systems engineering, whether it's fault analysis, symmetrical components, per unit systems, lighting design, um, everything that you must know as a power systems engineer, including the code and everything. It will force you to essentially go through all of those topics, and then only you'll be able to pass the exam, which I think is a really, really good positive. It's a huge opportunity for PEs just before they get their stamp, just before they get their license, to actually go in that go through that learning mode, because It is very important to brush up on the fundamentals, and I'm sure you're going to do well on that front. Any advice for students who are hesitant in taking the FE exam or jumping onto this PE licensing process? Resources that you would recommend, things that can help them streamline their studying. You've gone through that process yourself with full-time work, the personal commitments, being out of school for so many years.
Yeah, so I think you touched on one of the um, main things, and that's persistence. Not only persistence in the process, but I think persistence in understanding the barriers that may be in front of you, and problem solving your way through those, and not just saying, well, it's not in the cards for me, you know.
Yeah,
So, and I think the other one is just being patient with the process and being patient with yourself. Like I said, I was out of school for close to 2 decades, and I had to be patient with myself in terms of just getting my mind in that rhythm again.
right,
Uh, and you will remember. Your mind will remember. Your mind will, eventually it'll start clicking, and
yeah,
you'll feel better about it, and start speeding along. But you know, to start it, if you've been out of school for a while, it takes a bit, and
right,
just being
for sure,
patient with yourself, doing a little bit of time and working up. Basically, I guess that pertain to just being out of shape and just slowly working up and back into
right,
shape.
yes.
Um, it,
You got to do those treadmill runs, yeah,
yeah, and that's kind of how I viewed it. So
yeah.
hopefully,
And
with the challenges I've faced recently, and kind of losing on that momentum, hopefully that it won't take too long for me to gain that momentum back.
no, I think you're gonna do
But
fine. I think you're
you
gonna
know,
do fine. You can, P power exam. It will take you 4 to 5 months, and just follow the structure, the course, and I think you're gonna do well. FE probably was more difficult for somebody in your position with your
yeah.
profile, as compared to PE, because PE over the years you have gotten a bit of exposure already. And lastly, why would you recommend someone the online course and the study guide that you use for the FE exam?
Well, I think number one, it gives you necessary structure and a clear path to get from point A to point B. Um, I would suspect if I didn't have such a program that I don't believe I would have passed the fundamentals exam the first time. And I, I'm pretty sure that my path to even take this exam, to even feel like I was prepared, would have been a lot longer. Just because of the broad scope of the challenge, and to not have that resource. The first challenge would be, okay, what's the scope I need to study, and where do I go to find this information? Do I go back in my text? All these things, all those questions ran through my head when I started the process, until I found the program. And I was like, oh well, that all I have to do is step through this and focus on this information, and I'm bound to be successful. So it really gives you just just initial confidence that you feel like you're on the right path to get you from point A to point B,
That's
a
great.
structured path.
And I'm looking forward to repeating the same success story with the PE power exam preparation for you. And I'm sure that within just a matter of few months, you'll be able to add the credentials PE after your last name.
Me too. I appreciate all the help.
All right. Thanks a lot, Derwin. Thanks a lot, Dan, for taking time, and I really appreciate your